What a lovely person we're here to celebrate and commemorate. When we were young, nothing would make information fly through the family like the admonition, "Don't tell Mom." And then when she would find out whatever it was shortly thereafter, and have the event or whatever be something that she had never actually thought about possibly occurring, she would say, "Whatever possessed you?" Fortunately, exorcisms did not follow upon that. She had such a compassionate, humanistic view. And there was nobody in the world she wasn't concerned about. And the tormentors within that group of people she was concerned about, she was always ready to skewer them, especially if they were politicians. Her end-of-life success for herself involved two things. One, to not be tortured by doctors. Good call. And also to not be a shadow of a person in a nursing home for a long time. As it was, this was all hard to figure out as it happened. None of it was written ahead of time, but it just went extraordinarily well. And so when she elected voluntary stopping of eating and drinking, she had 12 days of amazing socialization, of between 6 and 10 hours a day, having people over and saying everything that usually is only said at a memorial service, but to share in person with everybody. And teaching the whole time about her view of end of life as she went. And it was amazing. And again, it's not like we knew what was going to happen, but she had 12 days of that and then 2 days of a coma, and then she died. And she died on 4/13. On 4/7, I was the first to start the day with her, and who would know what's going to be going on? And so she was awake, and I said, "Are you peaked?" And she said, "I'm peaked-er." But it doesn't feel bad. My nurses and other helpers are exemplary. I'm feeling blessed. I'm so at peace and comfortable and not worried about anything. It's wonderful. It's an exactly right experience. When I went into it, I didn't know it would be so right. And then I said to her, the lessons of your end of life will go on in many families for many generations. And she said, "Do you think?" Anything that I could do to stop that awful sitting in a facility for 10 years means a lot to me. I'm horrified by that. And this is so wonderful. You may quote me. And do have plenty of ice and water. And a spit cup. On 2 days after that, Marin gave her a bath with a less than talented assistant, me, showing that motherhood's more useful than medical training. And afterwards, we bundled up Mom, and it was a cold, rainy, windy spring day, and had her all bundled up, sitting by the sliding back door so she could get some weather and some sun of the world blowing in. And she said, a long time ago, when I thought about end of life, I thought about it being in the spring so I could watch the buds come out. And here I am. There were 3 different times I said goodbye forever to her because we didn't know what was going to happen. And so one of those was, I said, all right, your sweetsomeness, I'll talk to you soon and see you soon, as fate may offer. I love you. All right, I love you. Bye-bye. In recent years, she recommended to family members and perhaps some of you that everyone should eat 8 dried apricots every day. Which to me was bittersweet or just bitter in a way. Because, when I was 7 years old, I once had to sit at the table after dinner, and the kitchen was cleaned up, and everybody was gone except me sitting there because I wouldn't eat any apricots. The only thing I hated worse was lima beans. Anyway, that you all may celebrate Lois Hanson by taking her advice, I've arranged memorial service favors of apricots, dried apricots that are waiting for you out back. And here's the admonition regarding your duty to eat them. Mom says...
This is interesting. You'll see it as it plays out. We have not coordinated what we're saying. There is a way in which my mother's death is inconceivable. It's inconceivable and ineffable. And yet, there's also a way in which it was particular, it was specific, it was personal, and it can be talked about. There's a well-known poem circulated by uppity women in which the first line states, "When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple." And she did. All shades of purple. "It's my color," she said. Happily, many of the shades of purple are named after flowers. Happily, I say, because she also loved flowers. Lavender, lilac, violets, hyacinth, sweet pea, clematis, hydrangea. And do you think it qualifies to say grape, plum, eggplant? Her final weeks of life she laid in a bed of lavender, her white hair against soft lavender pillowcases and sheets, her lavender nightie covered loosely by a white duvet, a lavender bathrobe. I brought with me some essential oil of lavender here today So if you wish to, after the service, you could step forward to mist yourself with lavender. It is interesting to witness the way that a life clarifies, how roles and identifications and affects slough off like dead cells, and the personal essence of an individual, and I don't know what the word is here, it shines through, it illuminates, it elucidates. Oh yes. We can say that Lois Ann Snyder Hansen was a role model, a social pioneer, a pillar in her community, a leader for women's rights, interracial and interreligious understanding, an advocate of Planned Parenthood, of gay rights, of end-of-life choices, a volunteer of the Democratic Party. We can say she was a religious educator in the Unitarian Church, and held almost every volunteer position imaginable within it. Yes, indeed, she was the wife of Alan, whom she called Al, for decades of their 59-year marriage. She was the mother of 4 children, Johnny, Marnie Moo, Tofi Saw, and Andy Moon. Grandmother and expectant great-grandmother. She loved children and was practiced in the art of nurturing. Yes, she was a high school teacher of English and psychology, developer of curriculum, a certified reality therapist, all true and laudable. And yet I am drawn to her personal essence that especially brightened, became lustrous toward the end of her life. She said, "This is just how I imagined it would be. I always imagined my death in the springtime, with the flowers in bloom. The yellow daffodils burst open in the flower bed by the driveway, unwaveringly cheerful in welcoming a river of grieving guests. The forsythia arced high into the air, a riot of yellow in a garden outside her bedroom, and she rejoiced." The poet Mary Oliver tells us, "You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves." Maybe we can truly see a person through what she loves. Her color purple, flowers, birds, her beloved cat named Kitty, a huge white short-haired lap cat the size of a raccoon. She loved order, the tidy house, a martini, the New Yorker magazine, literature, biography, precise, eloquent, descriptive language. She was good, did the right thing, thorough, always dependable for a job well done. She loved the social rights, warm, deep conversations with family and friends were the vivifying moisture of her final weeks, and truly throughout her entire life. She loved having fun with her children. "Tell me stories," she prompted. "Sing something." She loved other people's stories. helping other people. The particularity of her being, her personal essence, qualities that were summoned from the infinite possibilities of being, these were lived by Lois Ann Snyder Hansen, lived long and well. And now, the particularity of her being has dissolved back into the eternal sea of being. Now, she lives in us, through us. Blessed be.
Call it Ode to Mom. You have to be patient for a second. I only get to do this one time. And with the modern contraptions of this day, I can take a shot of every single one of you. So look good. Thank you all. Bye. You ever thought birth order didn't mean anything? You get to your mom's memorial service, and of course we do it oldest to youngest. That just sticks. So, memories of my mother. Sliding down a long flight of stairs on my little bottom to the warm morning greeting of my mother that said, "I love you. You are safe. I support you in all that you do." I felt loved. I felt like I could be king. I remember it vividly. It wasn't last year. But I'm still working on the king thing. Seriously, I was 3 years old. She was 34. I sat for hours under the mangle. If there was ever a good reason for women's lib, it was getting rid of the mangle. My God. Pressing sheets and handkerchiefs for hours. It's hard to imagine how that computed. There wasn't great dissonance with her in doing that. But I sat for hours flipping the lever while she loaded sheets, pillowcases, handkerchiefs in to be processed. I liked helping her do these things. I felt so loved and secure in her presence, being a help in mangling or doing other tasks with her. In the last 10 months, I started going over to her house or calling her daily. Then the visits needed to be daily. She was lonely. She could sense that her processor was slipping, her memory leaving by leaps and bounds, and her back was hurting her mightily. Her world was shrinking. I was caring for her. She would be safe and loved in my presence. She was queen. Sitting in her hospital bed with the hospitalist, the palliative care doctor, and other nurses, medical people in the room, she announced, "We are not like other people." She was fully engaged now. No back, no memory. She was on. She went on to inform them of her philosophical and political belief on living and dying, how she had chosen to stop eating and drinking as a choice to hasten her death, and that she expected they would act in accordance with her wishes. It was the first any of them had encountered such an assertive, thoughtful, and courageous choice to end life in this manner. She was a teacher right to the end. She was cute and elegant. She worked hard to present herself in a relaxed but very perfect, quick way. She was a listener and a loud voice. She was a supporter in the crowd, and she was out front leading the way. She loved to love, and she loved to be loved. She had such complexity and diversity to her person. It's almost impossible to describe all of who she is, even with 4 of us working on it. She taught me how to parent. How? How to grandparent in a month. Good, man, that goofed me up. She showed me what it is to live the life you believe and to touch many along the way. She passed me that little gene that tells me to pick up little tiny black things that are in the carpet. To find all the specks and have everything neat and tidy. Fortunately, my father gave me a gene that overrides about 2/3 of it. Fortunately for you all, too. Is your junk drawer organized into little boxes with little labels? Is your towel drawer organized and neatly folded? I mean, think about it for a second. Is it? Do the boxes in your cupboard line up large to small and with the front edge flush with the edge of the shelf? Always were. Right to the day she died. The place was neat as a pin. We only were satisfied in the thought that she couldn't get around as much and couldn't see what a pit we'd made of her house. With all of us being. She was organized within an inch of her life, but never pressed that agenda on anyone. She listened, listened, listened. She stopped whatever she was doing to listen. She put down her book, shut off her favorite show to focus on who was there with her. If you were in her space, then you were a priority. If you sat next to her on a 60-minute airline flight, you would find that in that time, you would tell your entire life story. And if you picked her up from the airport, having just had a 60-minute flight, you would find that you would hear the story of the person she was next to. And I was always amazed at the detail and the history she knew about everyone she rode with. I teased her that she could get anyone to confess to her anywhere, anytime. Her sweet, soft, and caring approach opened people up. Mom loved my children. She bought 2 of them. Christy and I realized we needed to do IVF. My mom and dad pulled us aside and said, we'll pay for it. Because we couldn't. It's a gift that still overwhelms. Can't think of a bigger gift. When the kids would act up, when she was present, I would say, you bought them, you deal with them. Christy and I used to laugh about when we were on vacation and her saying, can't wait to see you guys, knowing it was the kids that she was waiting to see, not us. Each year, Lois and Alan took Maddie and Andy on a vacation in their camper, sometimes just up to Gretna, just 20 miles, 30 miles away, but it was still vacation. They all cherished those moments. Mom worked hard to know all her grandchildren, and the byproduct for everyone was fun, great memories, and a whole lot of love for all of them. As with everyone, she and Alan reeled in their family net. They focused their love on the people they were with. It made each one feel special and loved. And many people, many of you, are family. I knew her as Mom in my early years, Loie in my young adult years, Honey in her early grandmother years, and the Hunster in the last decade or so. Hunster was a nickname I gave her and one that she adopted. It represented her hip, edgy way of being in the world as an octogenarian that had an appeal to multiple generations. In fact, at 85 years old, she was in the back room teaching middle school kids in the church, including Ellie and Elam. Hunster and I hung out well together. We had a very easy relationship with no conversation off the table. It had many facets that made it feel like friends, but it wasn't really friends. She just made me feel that way. She was my mom. That relationship and boundary never changed. It couldn't change. She gave herself to each child and to each grandchild. The conversation and the needs were never about her. But we talked and talked and we talked for endless hours, she and I. In fact, one time we talked on the phone for 3.5 hours when I lived next door to her. It's better. I could look up in the window and see her and she me. We laughed about that as we were doing it, but we continued on in the conversation. I know another family member or so has done the same. No crisis, no drama, just talk. You are all here because of what an interesting, diverse, caring person she was. There's too much to tell, too many assets to describe. I settle in the fact that she gave me so much to cherish each day. I truly look back at her and my dad and just feel blessed to have been part of their lives. They were big people. And to have that enjoyment of each of them and the lessons of each day is so rewarding for the rest of my life. I think of her all the time and enjoy those thoughts. I look forward to seeing and talking to her in my dreams, as I have with my father. She would be humbled by your presence and honored by your expressions, gratified that you are going on living your full life and adding to the world in a positive way, and of course, leaving your campground better than how we found it. And so, for the end of my story, it'll be the end of her story. That on her last day, her last conscious day, she had had a stream of visitors come into the house, and she felt so gratified, and she said, as John pointed out, I feel so blessed. There's so much gratitude, something way more than I expected. And I feel like I've had my memorial service and got to be part of it. And I'm tired now. I'm ready to go to bed. And so to bed she went, and we tucked her in, and we all kissed her goodnight. And she got her covers up about her, and she said, "Okay, tell me stories. Sing to me." She goes, "No, sing to me." And she said, and so Andy and Marin and Steve and I were in the room, and we used to go camping in a little pop-up trailer, and we'd sing songs as a group to get the park ranger to come out, I guess. And so we started with the Beatles tune, Listen, do-da-do, and start off with that. And then we went into our grand and glorious song, one that we all take pride in and can do all verses, thank you to Lincoln Public Schools, and that is the Battle Hymn of the Republic. I know, it seems a little odd, but we're damn good at it. And we know all the verses, and we know parts. And so with that, we sang the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And as we sang through, she started crying and loved every second. She was in bliss. And we got done, and she said, again. Sing it again. And so we sang it again. And we got done, and it was a wonderful moment. And she said, again. We sang it 3 times that night, and after the 3rd time, she was sleepy, and she was ready to go to sleep, and had her medication that put her to sleep such that she would not wake up again until she died. And no, she didn't wake up when she died. But it was the last that we communicated with her while she was conscious, and she was in such a peaceful place and felt so blessed to have a wonderful life and to have so much expression from all of you in this place and many others.
Perhaps I'm a late bloomer. Losing my mother at the tender age of 55, I feel ready, just barely ready, to be all grown up. Having a living mother, having my mother, for such a long time has truly been a wonderful gift. It came in very handy long after you might think I'd become self-sufficient. That's the thing about immaturity. You just don't know how long it's going to last. John Donne said that anyone's death diminished him, but I find that my parents' deaths have enlarged me. We Unitarian Universalists are very aware of the interdependent web of existence, and my relative position on that web has changed forever. I'm sad to lose my mother, and yet new psychic opportunities are opening up. Mom would be the first to understand and appreciate this nuance. Her death made mortality more familiar. Life that seemed firm and durable turns out once again to have been evanescent. Dying makes me keenly aware of the preciousness of a smile, a relationship, a touch, loving words. My father chose the means and moment of his death openly and in a way that enriched the bonds of our family. My mother did likewise. She was a leader and a teacher and a gentle, steady role model, as well as a loving and increasingly needing mother. And our family orchestrated for ourselves the profound opportunity to share in communion with one another this dying and living process. Lois was a loving and permissive, even laissez-faire parent, and we had considerable latitude growing up. We learned to make our ways in the world with her myriad civilizing teachings to guide us. She was a devoted parent, and yet the business of her own pursuits meant that I, the youngest, sometimes wanted more of her than I got. I remember being at various UU family camps and as a child and repeatedly asking adults, "Have you seen my mother?" I'm glad that with 4 children, she still charted independence in her self-realization. One of the things she said many times in appreciation of my father is that he always supported her undertakings, never asking her to lower her sights or tamper her ambition to reach for a goal. Mom and Dad were stand-up allies in support of their children. For me, this was especially significant when I came out as gay at 15. When I was 30, I told Mom and Dad that I carried the HIV virus. I waited for 3 years after learning of my HIV to tell them. It was very early in the epidemic, 1988 at that point. It was a frightening and frightened time, and I wanted to spare them the pain of worrying about how soon and in what way I would die. I was wrong to wait. I deprived them and I deprived myself of some important loving. One of the lessons I finally learned from them is that it's not my place to protect people from the facts of their own lives, because then everyone is robbed. Here is some vintage Lois and Allen philosophy. We face life, acknowledge challenges, gather information, make a plan, take a step, another step, and don't worry about what we can't control or change. When my mental health tanked, my parents were there. When I became seriously ill, they were there. When I divorced and entered rehab, they were there. Then Dad died in 2007, and when I met my true love, Donald, in 2009, she was there to rejoice with and for me. Lois welcomed Donald into our family and her heart. As long as I knew Lois, she gave widely of her interest and attention. In truth, I think her willingness to listen far outpaced her desire to share her personal narrative when it was not related to a cause or a project. She had a private self, like we all do, one of passions and hopes, desire and resentments, wishes and need, a capacity to wound with words, odd, sudden islands of lacerating commentary in a sea of thoughtful consideration. She had depths that were never fully plumbed, by me at least. And now I find her both familiar and enigmatic. Lois fostered lively intellectual curiosity, and many disputes at the Hansen dinner table were settled by hasty recourse to a reference book. For you young people, this is what we use before iPhones. She loved to have fun with her family, and she and Dad were generous in giving us new experiences like travel and museums. When we traveled, Mom wanted to linger at places of interest until the historical markers were all read and the litter abated. Lois and Allen both believed in helping people equip themselves to live fully realized lives. When we were in a restaurant in San Francisco during a 1970 family vacation, Mom leaned over to me and said quietly of the gentleman in the Hawaiian shirts opposite us, "Andy, those men are homosexuals." She didn't say it to anyone else. I don't think she consciously knew I was gay, nor did I, certainly. But she intuitively grasped that just realizing the existence of men like these would one day be of real import to me. She got that. Mom's greatest gifts to me are humble ones. She taught me to read, to love books, to love language and think about it. She taught me to say please and thank you liberally, to give credit where it was due. She and my father taught me reflexively to see the other side of a question and consider its merits, even if the right answer seems self-evident. In fact, they taught me this so well that my seeing the other viewpoint has given irritation in numerous instances, where a simple, "You are so right," was what was wanted. Most of all, Lois taught me to nurture by nurturing me. She loved her own parents and often spoke of their affections. So we got to see that tenderness and satisfying relationships were a thread that ran through generations, at least sometimes. I have vivid memories of Mom caring for me in my diapered early years, waking me in the morning by gently stroking my forehead and asking, "Can I see some blue?" She let me decide important things at an early age, like whether to have my banana sliced or monkey style, whether I wished my sandwich cut horizontally or on the diagonal, in halves or quarters. It sounds trivial now, but I love that stuff. If I come back, I want to be a permanent 3-year-old, I think. Lois inquired after my welfare and into my feelings. She took pride in my accomplishments and counseled me in my challenges. She punished lightly and rationally. She was really quite wonderful, and she taught me the capacity to cosset and care for and sympathize with and appreciate the existence of others. These lessons have enriched my own life over and over again, yielding intense satisfaction. In her last 2 weeks of living, someone told Mom how she had helped them change their life for the better, and she said how deeply touched she was. This was in a phone call. She said to me afterward how deeply touched she was to know that she had made a positive difference for others. You'd think she'd have long since been aware that she excelled in this line, but in some way she didn't fully credit it before. She cried a bit and said, "I'm so glad I made a difference. That's what I wanted the most to do with my life, and I wasn't really sure I had." Lois, you actually did make the world safer, better. Mom's finally gone. Mom's forever here. My grief is elusive when her life and love and dying have rippled out in waves to enhance our lives and hearts and dreams. I'm not sure it's fitting to grieve a bountiful and enduring gift on the basis that it didn't continue indefinitely. Each time I yield kindness, it will be a visitation of those who made me. Each time my heart opens to compassion or my arms comfort, they will live in me. Lois, Alan, your voices and your love endure. I honor you. Namaste.
Close your eyes, let me tell you the reasons why. Think you're one of a kind. Here's to you, the one that always pulls us through. Always do what you gotta do. You're one of a kind. Thank God you're mine. You're an angel dressed in armor. You're the fear in every fight. You're my life and my safe harbor, where the sun sets every night. And if my love is blind, I don't wanna see the light. It's your beauty that betrays you. Your smile gives you away. 'Cause you're made of strength and mercy, and my soul is yours to save. I know this much is true. when my world was dark and blue. I know the only one who rescued me was you. Close your eyes and let me tell you all the reasons why you're never gonna have to cry, because you're one of a kind. Yeah, here's to you, the one that always pulls us through. You always do what you gotta do, baby, because you're one of a kind. When your love pours down on me, I know I'm finally free, so I tell you gratefully. Every single beat in my heart is yours to keep. Close your eyes, let me tell you all the reasons why, baby. You're never gonna have to cry, baby, because you're one of a kind. Yeah, here's to you. You're the one that always pulls us through. You always do what you gotta do, babe, because you're one of a kind. You're the reason why I'm breathing with a little look my way. You're the reason that I'm feeling it's finally safe to stay.
Oh, I'm so small, you seem so strong. My arms will hold you, keep you safe and warm. This bond between us can't be broken. I will be here, don't you cry, 'cause you will be in my heart. From this day on, now and forevermore, you will be in my heart. No matter what they say, you'll be here in my heart always. I've been searching a long time. Exactly like you. I've been traveling all around the world, waiting for you to come through. Someone like you. Baby, someone like you, keep me satisfied. Someone exactly like you. I've been traveling a hard road, baby, looking for someone exactly like you. I've been carrying my heavy load, waiting for the light to come shining through. Someone like you, make it all worthwhile. Someone like you, make me satisfied. Someone exactly like you. some soul searching. Find out where you at. I've been up and down the highway in all kinds of foreign lands.